citric acid cycle. So basically you have to keep in mind that everything in this process is catalyzed by enzymes, and to begin with, you start off with glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule. Then glycolysis, which let me point out occurs in only the cytoplasm. This is a eukaryotic cell that I drew out. 2 mitochondria, a nucleus, and then the fluid you see within the cell is known as the cytoplasm, where glycolysis occurs. Being said, when glycolysis breaks down glucose, it will form the 2 pyruvates, which is a 3-carbon molecule. And glycolysis happens in the absence of oxygen, then investing 2 ATPs, producing 2 NADH. With that being said, this is pretty much the end to the prep stage to go into the Krebs cycle. So from the 2 pyruvates that glycolysis pretty much formed, you're gonna oxidize one, and NAD plus will be reduced to NADH. Further on, the oxidation process right here will generate acetyl-CoA, which is a 2-carbon compound. With that being said, it will merge to oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4-carbon molecule. When these two merge, they will form the citric acid, which will then be oxidized throughout this whole cycle right here, and it was known as a Krebs cycle. So from these two merging together, it gives a citric acid 6 carbons, 2 of them which will cleave off, forming carbon dioxide. Within the process, you have the molecules. Each molecule in the green will be reduced. So example, NAD plus will be reduced to NADH, CO2. Then you have ADP reducing to ATP, FAD reducing to FADH2, and NAD plus reducing to NADH again. So each of these molecules are the inputs to the electron transport chain. Further on, you need to keep in mind that within this whole process, you need a total of 38 ATP promised by cellular respiration. So you need to make sure that you get 38 ATPs. So we have 1 NADH, and since glycolysis produced 2 pyruvates, you will have to multiply everything by 2, which takes us back over here, and this is why I drew this arrow, indicating that you have to multiply everything by 2. So the 1 NADH that we have, you'll multiply by 2, which will give you a 2 NADH. Looking back to the Krebs cycle, you have another one here, here, and here. Gives you 3. So you have to multiply the 3 that you just found out and multiply them by the 2 that you originally had, giving you 6 NADH. Further on, you have the 1 ATP, but again you have to multiply by 2 to get 2 ATP. And you have 1 FADH2, again you multiply by 2 to get 2 FADH2. The ATP, you have to look back to glycolysis, which produced the 2 ATP here. So for those 2, you multiply by the 2 that you already had, giving you the 4 ATP. And you do the same process with the NADH and the FADH. Essentially, you will get 10 NADH and 2 FADH. But since these 2 molecules are the input, again, to the electron transport chain, for every NADH cycle, it will produce 3 ATP. So if you multiply the 10 that you have times the 3, it will give you 30 ATP. For every FADH, it will produce 2 ATP. So you will multiply that by 2, and it will give you 4 FADH. So now you are left with 30 ATP, 4 FADH, plus the 4 ATP that you had originally up here, giving you a total of the 30 ATP promised by cellular respiration. That's it.